I'm live. I'm live. I'm live. What's up, everybody? I'm sure you're like, where's he at? What's he doing? Oh, I left my water over there. I always do that. I always leave my water away from me. Anyway, it's all good. We're going to magically watch this. Oh, there it is. No, thanks, baby. Okay, I'm silly. If you guys hang with me long enough, you'll find out how goofy I am. So if you guys are cool with that, then excellent. And if you're not, then don't know what to tell you. Tough. Be yourself. That's all I can say. I encourage you to be yourself because that's what matters most. What do they say? Be true to you. Sounds like a silly slogan from that fire dog, the firefighter dog. I'm trying to think of what that dog was from the 90s. Clifford, was he a firefighter dog? There's Big Red Dog. I'm trying to think. There was like someone was like, be true to you. Anyway. All right, guys. What's up? So we got step number 4 tonight. We're going to get right to it. So with our, all right, so we were missing the description. All right, cool. I'll make sure I take care of that. So step number 4 of the 5 steps is variety. We'll cover step number 5 tomorrow, but variety. So something that came to my mind when I was putting this together is working out every single day, which typically is majority of the same thing over and over again. Group class, if you're doing group classes, if you got a good trainer, they're going to do their best to keep their content. Cycling, they're going to try different combinations, different things to continue to challenge your body. Different music. Hopefully music is really tough in our industry, finding good music to keep the group going. So you might see your some trainers excel in that, others maybe not so much. We all have our strengths, right? In every industry, just like your team, whoever you work for, in your corporate industry, your work, whatever you're doing, everybody's got their strengths. There are things that they're good at. Anyway, variety is a beautiful thing because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, typically once you get into a rhythm, food is generally going to look the same more or less. Your exercise is going to look the same. It's going to progress. It's going to change. If you're doing like one common complaint that I get for group classes that I've had my clients tell me is our old trainer did the same thing over and over and over again, like the same thing over and. To me, that would drive me nuts. Like I had to give those clients kudos for hanging in there for long. And I'm not just talking about like a couple weeks, couple months. Like I understand that they were doing it for possibly years, the same stuff in class, showing up and doing the same stuff. And I've done my best as a trainer to always mix it up in my classes. So every time you come to class, it's going to be different. Now, the moves, the exercises generally will be the same, but the combinations are going to be different. And I'm always trying to find out different exercises, different ways to challenge the body. Sometimes I come up with my own stuff. Sometimes I, take a page out of another trainer's book or maybe adapt it. Just depends. And every week is different. But the goal is to keep you sweating, keep the muscles fatigued and sore, and do enough to make the class worth it. Now, there is a side of fitness, particularly on group fitness, where it's more social, more mental, more even emotional, relational. I totally get that. So I want to speak to that briefly. Variety in general is a beautiful thing because it's very easy to get bored. It's very easy to lose interest when it comes to pursuing goals in your fitness and lifestyle in the context thereof, fitness, nutrition, coaching. In that area, you might be stuck on an idea or a challenge or a hard spot for quite some time, and there might be some drag, some mental fatigue and drag that you experience. A lot of times, working on yourself isn't really fun. There isn't really anything that says like, "Oh my gosh, I love finding my challenge points. I love finding my trigger points and what drives me crazy." I love addressing tight and sore muscles on a foam roller. Like I've never heard anybody say that unless they're crazy or unless they're promoting a product or they have had such a shift in their lifestyle and quality of health that they can't help but talk about it. That is me in the sense is one of the reasons why I started doing this is because I found out how beneficial it was to myself. I shared it with my parents and a couple other people. They started to see the benefit and I was like, I really enjoy doing this. I really see some value here, and it has since bloomed into something bigger. But variety is very valuable. And I want to quote one of my first trainers who I'm actually wearing his company here, P90X. Tony Horton said it every time. If anybody has ever done this original program, P90X, you'll remember him always saying variety is the spice of life. And I added that in the thumbnail today. I quoted it. I'm quoting Tony Horton because variety truly is the spice of life. That can come in food, which was the picture if you saw the thumbnail today. A wide variety of vegetables if you eat the same thing over and over again. It can be mind numbing unless you enjoy it, which is cool. If you enjoy that, that's great. That's a beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, you want to mix it up enough to keep you engaged. Maybe you don't need to mix it up, which is good if you can stick with something the same for a year. And then there are those seasons where maybe you go 6 months, a year, a couple years, and then life changes and variety becomes necessary, meaning the stuff you were doing in the previous season is no longer going to apply in the current season. Maybe you've had a shift in your body. Maybe your goals have changed. Maybe your body just no longer responds to that training because it's now in a state where it's used to it. The muscle memory or just the process of the training that you did is just no longer effective because now you're in a new season, a new shift. As we get older, the body starts to respond differently. There's a lot of little different factors in there, but ultimately, at the end of the day, variety can become necessary as well, meaning you're going to have to change things up a bit to move it forward. Now, ultimately, in the context of training, in the case of fitness and nutrition specifically, the goal is to keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible and do the best you can for repetition. Repetition, execution, practicing, not perfection, as we talked about on day 2. Originally setting up that game plan, knowing the phases of training. There's actually phases of training. That's the reason why so many people plateau and get frustrated, is because they get to a point where their body no longer will respond to the training stimulus, the exercise, and they keep doing the same thing thinking that it's going to make a difference, or they try to do more of it to a point of fatigue, frustration, of even breakdown, and still very little changes. I've talked to a lot of people, for example, who are like, I can do 100 crunches, I can, run all day long, and for some reason or another, I can't get my abs to show up. What's going on? It's like, well, you're using the wrong energy system to get those abs to show up. You're most likely not eating appropriately for the abs to show up. And your training, your resistance training may not be there. Most runners I've talked to or come into contact with, I have a client now. Prior to meeting me and I think his previous trainer, he wasn't doing any weightlifting at all. And his physician told him, he's like, I think you're going to be in great shape as you continue to get into your 50s, 60s, and so on, 70s. However, I'm afraid, like, he's like, I'm sure you're going to be able to run miles and be good, but I'm afraid that you're not going to be able to take your suitcase and put it up in the overhead carriage. Like, at some point in time, if you don't address the strength side of things, you're going to have some issues down the road. So that's one case. But I gave that hopefully as an illustration to really drive home this point that there is going to have to be times and situations where you're going to have to change it up. And, I would say this, a really good catch-all is resistance training. Resistance training really does assist you in building strength. It really does assist you in burning fat. It really does assist you on the cardiovascular side. In fact, I've even there was a lady, she's really sweet. Let's see, Anne. I think Anne, yeah. I don't know necessarily always use names, but she was on a council that I was on, an advisory board council, more or less. Now, we were really trying to build out the Bay Area and what we were focusing on in our coaching in this particular group that we were in. So there was 4 of us, and she told me a story of how she was doing very long runs, the ultra marathoner, so the 100-mile runs, which, kudos to her. Like, after a mile, I get cranky. I'm just not the running type. So I couldn't imagine trying to make myself do 100 miles in a day. That would be just miserable, or however many hours it takes for them to do it. That being said, one thing she told me that I thought was really interesting, but it's always stuck with me, and I've always passed it on to runners, especially, or any individuals who do long distance, high repetition sports like biking, swimming, any of the any of the triathlon rather events, or any other events that require long distance. That being said, you want to incorporate strength training into your regimen without a shadow of a doubt, because there is a certain point where without it, you're just not going to have that same capacity for push through. Okay. The strength training really helps increase the cardiovascular, the capacity, the lung capacity. It can help improve your VO2 max, which relates to, again, your capacity, your oxygen capacity in the body and the efficiency thereof. Strength training can really help in a lot of different areas. Even that anaerobic training, so training without oxygen, can really help increase your capacity as well. Now, there's certain things obviously that won't help with long distance, but ultimately, what I'm saying is that strength training is a nice way to help, or a nice cover all, if you will, for training. Now, if there's something more specific, like well, no, even in that case, my mind was going towards if you're a dancer or a ballerina. But even in that case, it doesn't have to be heavy weight. It can be very lightweight, high repetitions, again, to build nice, long muscle, which will allow you to stay lean, not bulky, okay, not adding on mass, which requires work, and ultimately provide you with a more strong, more conditioned body. So anyway, that's just kind of a rabbit hole example of variety. Strength training is one item where you can get a lot of variety, by the way. But ultimately, whatever you decide to choose in your lifestyle, let's say in what would be an analogy within the fresh model, fitness, finances, relation, recreation. Recreation, for example, I can give you guys a quick story. So here in my neighborhood, it's actually not a bad place to walk. We're actually connected to a station for the light rail, which is nice. But around us, a lot of different spots to walk. A couple, maybe three parks. One, two, three-ish. Yeah, about three roughly, 2, 3 parks in the area. And what I've done is I've tried my best to go down different streets every time to create different walking paths, 10 to 15 to 30-minute walking paths, or loops, if you will, just to keep it mixed up, just to keep the variety going. So it's not the same old same. Get a different scene every time as I allow my mind to rest and relax and take in the area. And there's nothing like having a little bit of variety to mix up the day, especially to get out of the house. If you've been in the house, sitting, working all day, very important there too. So in the case of recreation, if you have a larger area, like let's say you're in a city, but you've got several other surrounding cities, jump in the car, the bike, the transportation, or walk a little bit further, to pick a new place to walk. A little bit of variety there is a beautiful thing. And so that can apply, I think, in every situation and scenario. Fitness, finances, recreation, relationships, education in these areas, getting educated on how you can add more variety to whatever it is you're working on, variety in your spirit and soul health, maybe trying a different concept, different practice, if you will. Maybe you've been doing meditation, or you've been using it to focus on the heavy hitters, the most important goals of the day, just allowing all of your time in your meditation to be spent on one item so that you can maximize on that. Maybe switching your focus to clearing the mind. And if anything shows up, writing it down on a piece of paper. Both methods, you can do that. But focusing on clearing the mind, just allowing yourself to be at peace, no thoughts, no emotions, no nothing, just a nice clear space, and writing down some notes as you go, if anything pops into your head, so you don't forget and can address it later. But a little bit of a different variety. 2 simple ways that you can utilize meditation for your mental and spiritual and emotional health. And just anywhere else in the case of overall health, I really do think that keeping the variety going, the nutrition, as I said earlier, fitness, food rather, excuse me, is a very beautiful thing. I think it is very underutilized at times, and unfortunately, at times we can even think that I have to do the same thing over and over and over and over again to have success. There's this idea of repetitions, repetitions, repetitions over time will produce great results, and there's actually nothing that isn't true about that. But continuing to do the same activities over time can become less beneficial over time if adjustments are required. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Again, in this 5-step process, the goal is going to be to ultimately put them all together in a nice shorter video as a 5-step plan. We're just getting into finer details today, but ultimately the goal is to get into a 5-step quick version of this, so it'll be informational, it'll be useful for you, and you can apply it right off the bat. Okay, guys, we're done for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow for step number 5. Step number 5 is, let's see if I can pull it from my memory. Let's see. So we had for step number 1, set goals and game plan. Step number 2 is execution, practice, not perfection. Step number 3, which was last night, that is the power of rest. Number 4 tonight was, or is, tonight was the variety. And then number 5, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue for the life of me. It's somewhat like number 2, but a little bit different. Anyway, come back for tomorrow night. Let's keep it at that. All right, Ryan Sanders with Project Fresh will cover step 5 tomorrow night, and then maybe 1 or 2 specific topics Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. And then we'll see you guys after the holiday break. All right, we'll see you soon. Have a great one. Take care.